Welcome back to another episode of Real Chumps. We're chatting about movies, feels like hanging out with friends. I'm your host, Marcel, and with me as always is my co-host, Danny.
In this week's episode, we are going to be discussing the 2007 film Across the Universe, directed by Julie Taymor, written by Dick Clement and Ian Furness.
Sure. Why not?
and Julie Taymor, starring Evan Rachel Wood, Jim Sturgis, and many, many more. We are
Joe
also
Anderson. We got to throw his name in there.
Oh, yeah. Joe Anderson.
I love Joe.
And Ariel, thank you for coming in. Ariel is our special guest of today. She is one of the hosts for the Underrated podcast, and has her own podcast called You've Never Seen. So welcome, Ariel. We're so happy to have you here.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Like they mentioned, I have a company, Undercast Company, and then a podcast, Underrated. So yeah, go and check those out. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for letting me on. We've had Marcel on a few episodes of that podcast, and then you guys are going to be joining me for one of my You've Never Seen podcast episodes, and I'm very excited for that because it's going to be for. For listeners of that podcast, I have a blank spot with it when it comes to 80s movies in particular. So there's going to be a really good classic 80s movie that we're going to be talking about on that one, just to tease it to go and check that out. Yeah.
I'm excited for it.
I'm excited too. It's a great one.
You guys are a great team over there at Undercast and Underrated.
Thank you.
You guys recently did, which I'm so glad you guys did, the Shanghai Nights and Shanghai Noons series, which they are so good, by the way.
So good.
They're so fun, and not enough people talk about them.
I feel like that whole that era of a movie has, like, they're only people who lived them.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
they've kind of like been eaten up by the like monopolies of superheroes and some of these other things. That like these sort of like actiony duo movies.
Yeah.
I remember when Loki came out, right? Owen Wilson.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right, and I think I was at work, and so I was like, yeah, Owen Wilson from like Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights. I was telling my coworker, and they're like, who? I'm like, Wedding Crashers? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson is from Shanghai Noon for me.
Yes.
That was my first interaction with them. So yeah,
for sure,
they're good ones.
No, you guys are great. We will link all the information to not only to the for them, so check them out. And anyways, Ariel, we do like to have I don't know if you've checked out the pod, but we like to have questions of the day or questions of the pod. So this week is a pretty easy one. I just want to know, what is your favorite Beatles song?
Oh, come on, man. That's not an easy one.
Come on, you're not expecting that.
Yeah, it's a hard one, but I think like a classic one that's become like kind of like iconic in my family is like Hey Jude. I mean, just the whole story behind it, and it's kind of a sad story. I don't know if you know the story behind Hey Jude, of like essentially, kind of iconically at this point, John Lennon, married Yoko Ono, and unfortunately, like, left his family essentially because that, including his son Jude, and Paul McCartney, being the awesome person that he is, like, wrote this song essentially for who's like his not biological but nephew, to kind of like, it's okay, it'll be okay, I'll look after you, you'll be fine, and stuff like that. And it's like, but it's such a great song for that reason, because you could connect to it in any kind of like hardship kind of thing. In the case of this movie that we're going to be talking about, it's just like it's a song that helps you regain your hope, and that's been a great one for me of the Beatles. Yeah.
Good choice. That's a good one. I do like that song. For me, it's Till There Was You. I think, and it's funny because it's the one song that I like sing to my girls. Like, that's like when they were babies. Like, I would sing like both of them to like rock them to sleep. Some parents are singing Rockabye Baby, others are singing Taylor Swift. I'm singing Till There Was You from the Beatles.
No, great choice.
Yeah, it's a good one. And I think I was singing like years ago when I was with our first, I would sing it, and my wife's like, "Oh, that's a pretty song." I'm like, "Yeah, it's the Beatles." She's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And so it has great
Yeah.
lyrics. It's very beautiful. I think that's my one that like we sing the most at home. Yeah.
I actually sing Hey Jude to my oldest a lot,
Oh.
and it's like she's like play Hey Jude. And anyways, but I think my favorite, not my favorite, but like a song that I really enjoy, that I'm gonna say to this one is on or I really love Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. It's such a long freaking name.
Yeah,
That's
Sergeant
just a
Pepper's
fun.
Lonely Heart Club.
Yeah, but also Love Me Do.
Oh yeah,
I don't know, something about that song. It's fun.
it is fun.
It's warm. I don't know. It's so good with it. Anyways, good stuff. I wanted to chat with that. So let's go into the movie. Ariel, can you give us a breakdown of Across? Actually, yeah. Let's give us a breakdown of Across the Universe and like a little bit of the plot, that sort of thing, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Across the Universe is essentially a jukebox musical movie that is essentially like it plays through using the music of the Beatles. And it starts off with first off Jude from Liverpool, from England, which of course is where the Beatles were from as well, who travels to the US to try and find his GI father, his long lost dad, who was a GI, and essentially had conceived him and didn't know about him, and then traveled back to the US as GIs of that time, and still sometimes do. And in the process he ends up meeting Max, who becomes his best friend, and then also as well, who Max is essentially ends up being a college dropout, hates college, ends up him and Jude end up going to New York, and then he also meets who ends up being the love of his life, Lucy, who is Max's sister, and she essentially has a boyfriend who ends up going to Vietnam and dying, and then later travels alongside them to New York and becomes a protester of the war, of those kind of things, and then Max himself gets drafted and goes to Vietnam. Jude becomes a artist, and it's all this just perfect story of like love and things like that, and it's just such a beautiful movie, and with beautiful visuals, and very much encompasses in an awesome way the trajectory of music that the Beatles were. Like, I was thinking about this before I hopped on here, that the Beatles are, I would consider, one of the most historically relevant bands of their time. Like, they very much transformed with the world in a way, of their style and things like that. And then the movie itself kind of captures that kind of trajectory of the Beatles themselves without even referencing the Beatles or anything like that. It just uses their music as the landscape that their music was in during that time of this 60s, essentially.
Great
overview. This is a great movie.
Yeah, great movie.
It's been a while for me, and I kind with that said, before we get you chose this, Ariel, as the movie that has most shaped you, right? As a first time guest, we always like to have our guests kind of pick a movie that has most shaped them, either as a creator, as a human being, as whatever, right? And we'll get to that because I'm really curious as to how, like, in what ways this movie has shaped you. But I'm curious, like, what it is like your history with this movie, with the Beatles. Did you grow up watching, like, listening to the Beatles? Did you see this when it first came out? I kind of want to just kind of gauge everyone's like relationship with the Beatles / Across the Universe, the movie.
Yeah,
Danny,
I mean,
or go ahead, Ariel.
Sorry, whichever one.
You can go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. The Beatles are just like, they were always a band that was just there, like they're such an iconic band that I don't even remember when the first time I ever heard them. It's very much like akin to how Michael Jackson is to my family as well. Of like they're just there. It's the Beatles, it's Michael Jackson. Ironically both connected. But yeah, like it's this kind of like it was just the Beatles, and then when this movie came out, I didn't see it unfortunately in the theaters originally. I did get to when they re-released it. I think for like the 10th anniversary, I was able to watch it in theaters, but I ended up like my one of my aunts like, oh, you guys should check out this movie. They had it on DVD. We borrowed the DVD, and I immediately fell in love with this movie because I am a person of like of musicals. My mom kind of like raised me on the old golden age of movie musicals as well, and I just like I love and so like I really fell in love with Jude and Lucy's relationship and the complexity of it, and I've always been like kind of like a sympathizer for like people in wars and stuff like that, especially I come from a family of like who have served their country and stuff, so I like know these kinds of like things that happen and how messed up people are after war and stuff like that, and it's kind of like touches that, and I think it just hit at the right time when I watched this movie. I watched it when I was a sophomore in high school. I had a very incredible teacher named Mr. Rupp. He unfortunately has passed away, but he was a Vietnam vet, the most incredible kind of guy. Like I would equate him to kind of being like Max. He was just like an awesome guy, but he had this sentimentality of like he was proud of serving, but he was like, no, like it's messed up. Like the war was messed up, and stuff like that. And so and he taught, of course, U.S. history. So like I was learning essentially what this movie was about and stuff, and then it ended up actually like informing how I did my essentially my final English project of my high school career. Was like we would choose like one book that we chose that that we had read in our sophomore, and I mean not my sophomore, in our what's the third year of high school? Junior, yeah, junior or senior year. And I chose because I just watched Across the Universe, and we had read The Things They Carried, which is also set in the Vietnam War. I chose The Things They Carried, and then created like a slideshow that the majority used a good amount of songs from Across the Universe and those versions, and like I think I still have that slideshow somewhere. Like it had slideshows and music. It was I think one of my best projects in my high school career. And yeah, so like it just like informed me in that way, and then it's just every time I rewatch this movie, I just love it so much. I was like watching it, today before we started recording, and it was like I think this might be like it definitely is. I've always considered it as one of my top 3, but I think this might be like my top 1 because I feel like I could watch this at any time. Like, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's awesome. I just want to give a quick shout out the fact that you mentioned your English teacher last week's episode.
A history teacher. And
history,
then
sorry. History teacher, then English teacher. But like you had this teacher. Last week's episode was on Dead Poet Society, and because it's back to school time, so it just felt really relevant. Awesome.
Yeah.
Let me share a little bit about my experience.
Please.
So this came out 2007. I didn't watch it in theaters. I grew up with the Beatles as well, and Michael Jackson. It's so funny you mentioned that because I was like, oh my goodness. Like Mexican mom, she's like Beatles and Michael Jackson.
Rough history between the two, but you know, with the whole thing,
right? Anyways, my mom like the Beatle one album, the Red album.
Yeah,
my mom like she got it. She like would listen to it and love that album. And that's kind of where I kind of gained an appreciation for the Beatles, because it just had a lot of some of the top hits. And then I had I had a group of friends in high school, and I think it was 2010, or 2009, 2010, that my mom had bought the movie because she wanted it, because she'd known that this movie came out. So I watched it with my mom, maybe my sister or whatever, but really enjoyed it, enjoyed it. Definitely was like, man, that was trippy. I think it was the first time I've ever seen like a jukebox musical.
Okay, yeah.
And so that was kind of like a trip that I'd never really like experienced. So that was fun. And then I ended up watching it with several times with friends, and because they like they went deep into Beatles, like this discography, and like trying to understand, and we had a person that was in our life that was a huge Beatle fan. So we talked with as an adult, and we talked with them a lot. So anyways, it was just amazing to kind of get that. And that's kind of where I've experienced it. And so it had been a couple of years, but I've seen it like lots of times. And I've just, I didn't get to fully watch the whole thing. But I did enjoy rewatching some of the key parts that just were like amazing. I actually, in prep for this podcast, I discovered that Selma Hayek is the nurse, which I didn't realize until this time. I also discovered the fact that Selma Hayek, she actually asked to be on this, and that she was like Julie was. So, okay, we'll have you be. And she's like, just one nurse?
Yeah, just one nurse.
Anyways, so I just love it. You guys are way cooler than I am.
Come on, man.
Watch the special features. There's like a whole documentary kind of like of the making of it.
Oh, yeah,
That's really good. And that's like, that comes out of it. And that this movie was very much like, we'll get into it, but that this movie was very much like developed on the fly, which was in like kind of like the creation of it was a very fluid movie, which was like really awesome.
Yeah, we will actually get to that, because there's lots of fascinating stuff there. For me, also, there are three constants in life: Michael Jackson, the Beatles, and Michael Jordan.
Yes,
those are the three constants. Like those three have always existed. And will always exist, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up with the Beatles. I love the Beatles. I listen to them. I'm trying to get my kids to listen to them.
I know.
So when I saw the trailer for this, I was like, oh, a musical. And I think at some point in my life growing up, I'm like, there has got to be someone that can do like a Beatles musical.
Yeah.
Like there needs to be. And I knew of like A Hard Day's Night, the Beatles movie, and the other ones that they did, right?
Quite a bit.
But like I'm like, there has to be, and I think this was like, because this came out 2007, right? So I think like in 2005-ish, or maybe a little bit earlier, Mamma Mia was kind of like the big Broadway hit, right? And I remember I never saw it on stage. I listened to the soundtrack and whatever, and I'm like, why isn't there something like this but for the Beatles?
Yeah.
Right. And so when the trailer came out, I was like, oh, nice, finally. And I saw it in theaters. Loved it. Also, I was like, oh man, it was like trippy. Like I have to watch it. And I'm pretty sure I watched it like 5 times, 3 or 5 times that first year it came out.
Yeah.
We had a local like dollar theater, and I think I went like twice there, and then we rented it. And so like I saw it at least like 3 or 4 times that first year. And I hadn't revisited it until now. But it's interesting because like 11-ish, 12 years ago was when I met my wife, and I went through this like phase of just listening to the movie soundtrack for like 3 months straight.
It's a great soundtrack.
There's a deluxe too. Like
yes,
yeah,
yes, there is. Yeah. And so like I was just for like 3 months of like us early dating. That's all I would listen. She lived like 30 minutes away, so like I would just put on Across the Universe and like drive all the way to just Across the Universe. So it was like a fun like flashback, or like walk down memory lane. I'd be like, I remember when I was dating and we were dating, and I'd play this and drive up to her house. So
That's awesome.
yeah, it is a fun movie. I loved it. It's great. I forgot just how impactful it is, and continues to be relevant for, not just for like in its story, in the music adaptations. It's really good, and I'm really excited to like get into the nitty gritty.
And let's do that, because there's a lot to talk about. We could be here for probably a couple hours. So I kind of want to, I don't know, Marshall, do you have some place you want to start? Or Ariel, do you have a place?
I'm good with whatever you like.
Let's, well, I guess you talked a little bit about this, Ariel. This is like your top one movie, right? Why, and in what way has it shaped you, and why Across the Universe is your most shaped movie?
Yeah, like I said, I think it hit at the right time, and it actually like has informed how I like think storytelling in my mind. I really love like all the ideas that I've had are like go along with movies, or go along with music, whether, you know, if I were ever to like have the chance to make a movie or anything like that. Two of my major ideas is like one is like a jukebox musical, based on a certain artist's music. I won't say whose, because it might, you never know, it might happen. Want it stolen. But then another one is like essentially telling this story, but like having, you know, essentially, which equates to my other favorite, one of my other top threes of Garden State, of this soundtrack that informs like the feelings that you know, your characters are feeling. And that's just how I think of like a story, is like whenever I'm listening to music or anything like that, it's like, you know, it informs the story of who's listening to it. So yeah, I was like, if I ever had the opportunity to like do that kind of thing, it would be like, okay, like I love the idea of like, I've heard some, I think it's I don't know if it's Mike Flanagan, but it's some director or writer. They essentially provide a playlist for their you know, actors and stuff like that to inform their character. And I would like, oh yeah, I would totally do that, because like that's just how I think, is like music is definitely like, for me, a quick service to how you're feeling, like, and that's like with when this movie came along in my life, as well as Garden State, which kind of hit at about the same time. It's just how it is informed how, you know, my creativity is, and things like that. So yeah, that's how it's important.
Thanks.
I love that because this movie does have such a unique directing style, right?
Yeah.
And a visual style as well, which I think as a musical, it's very, I don't want to say easy, but it's very common for like a musical, just kind of, you have the set and we have the choreography, and whether that's just like a drawn set background, right? But whereas this one's very stylistic, right? There's animation at parts, really cool like images with a lot of symbolism and metaphors in it. And I love that you talk about like that style of storytelling. And maybe let's jump into that. Like, how does the visual effects and artistic direction that Julie Taymor takes create this dreamlike atmosphere, right? There's, especially this last time I was watching, I'm like, it really does feel like, one, yeah, it takes you have the backdrop of the 60s, right? But there's this dreamlike aspect to it all.
You know, I love what you said, that this feels, or no, Marcel, that you said that this still feels timeless or like relevant, right? And I think part of what it comes is the way that she told this movie is that, you know, I mean, she comes from a background of theater, right? And I think you know, there's been several people that have come from theaters and you know, they do musicals or and whatever, and they, you know, that's, you know, I think now you got, you know, Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights, and like how that, you know, this using the musical to like help leverage, you know, with the, you know, story. But I felt like I just feel like this movie is in its a league of its own,
Yeah.
because like we got these huge set pieces that it's not just about telling, it's not just about like having showcasing the music, it's like telling a story, leveraging the music, while all, for the most part, in most of them, trying to leverage moving the story forward, right? I mean, there's a couple of songs in there that if they were cut, they, you know, you probably could still have, you know,
Yeah.
the plots are still there, but I mean, we're following multiple people, so there's like, you know, there's a lot to juggle. But I mean, like, you know, if you suspend some like super criticism or whatever, it's a beautiful movie. It's a wonderful use of technical skill in understanding different mediums and leveraging those into something that is, it's so enjoyable. I mean, I know that like it actually didn't. I know it didn't do well.
Yeah.
Like in the greater like I don't know. I just feel like this might be a movie. Like I don't know how people feel about it now.
But I feel like people love it now, right? I think it had its criticisms when it first came out, and I'm pretty sure, like, I was looking at the IMDb rating, and it has like a 7.5, which is really good, right? But I'm pretty sure a couple of years ago it was not that high. I think it's developed a love and I think a higher appreciation over the last decade.
You have something to say, Ariel?
Oh no, it's just like, yeah, I don't, because it was not marketed, you know, as well. I believe, like, I think I had like seen like a trailer, but that was it. Like, I had only seen one trailer, so that's why I never really saw it in theaters when it originally came out. And then yeah, like I got exposed to it by like essentially word of mouth, but it is such a beautifully directed movie, and just the, not just directing but the editing as well. Like there's so many shots that are like seamlessly spliced together. I mean, like the opening scene of um you know, Hold Me Tight, and the seamlessness of like of the contrast between Lucy's dance and Jude's, like, you know, kind of like mod, kind of like club dancing kind of thing. It's just like so awesome, and to have that kind of like a like do idea of like having duets between your two main, what, like your two main characters before they even meet is just like just such a brilliant choice in you know, creatively. And I think that's why like this movie is gaining more you know, gains popularity consistently, you know, even now, is because of this, the creativeness of the storytelling, of the writing, and of the directing and the editing. It's just like, and the visuals, and yeah, like you were saying, like all these big set pieces, like, and the different changes in art styles, and like how I was touching before, it kind of like tracks with the changing of art style that the Beatles were. You know, they started off as like a mod band, and then or somewhat mod band, and then like then, you know, the hip kind of like Sergeant Pepper and Yellow Submarine, and then you go into Revolver and Let It Be and all that kind of style and stuff.
I love that you bring up that first number, right? Because it's also such a great way to like give us a contrast of where these characters are at, right? You have Lucy, who is head over heels over her boyfriend, and rightfully so, right? And with the great song "Hold Me Tight," and then at the high school dance, everyone's like the choreography, everyone's all into it, and then you shift hard into Jude, where it's, you know, at the music venue, and it's like very like muted colors, and what he's wearing as well as what she's wearing, and like it's very close, more intimate, right? And then we cut back over again to Lucy, and everyone's going at it and dancing. I just love that, because these are two individuals who are just in the 60s, late teenage, early adult life, and they're just in different stages of life, but it's telling me that these characters are going to come together at some point, right?
I would almost argue that it's not that they're different stages of life; they just have different circumstances.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I like they come from different circumstances, yet they have kindred spirits in this. And that's where I know I feel for that. You know, this movie I feel like does a amazingly beautiful job of providing adding, because this is not a movie that would win best edit, like get nominated for best editing and win it, because you know edits are happening, like it just has such a style. But I would argue to say that this would win if there was like some sort of YouTuber like for like outstanding, a thing that like keeps you engaged, that like that allows you to have an experience. This movie wouldn't, because like the fact that they add so much juxtaposition, not only with like the song lyrics to the visuals, but also the visuals together, right? I think of Strawberry Fields Forever, right? You know, you've got this art piece, the strawberries, but then the act with the war, and it just to me, there's just it adds the juxtaposition of what editing provides, right? Adding complete opposite, having one scene that's beautiful and flipping it to be something that feels so dangerous and so, or not dangerous, but or even could be like, you know, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like shock, you know, some kind.
Okay,
So,
yeah, like a shock effect to
just because, like, you know, sometimes
jarring contrast.
One of the things, like, you know, when editing, sometimes you like some of the most impactful things you do. Walter Murch talks about this in A Blink of an Eye. He talks about that you got to have juxtaposition, right? Because you need to feel something, and then if you flip it to be something that is completely opposite, you then are like yanked to a different feeling, and it does something like you know, it helps you. It not only like kind of recenters you into a position, it also just helps with adding like to some degree a pause, but also just power, like the fact that like you can showcase two different feelings within 3 seconds.
I love that. I think maybe I might be getting ahead of myself, but the number of I Want to Hold Your Hand with Prudence.
Oh, man, that's such a strong one.
It's such a great one. I totally forgot that one was in this movie.
Well, it's because I think part of it is like Prudence's characters are kind of like,
I have a love-hate relationship with that character. Well, not with the character, but with how they depicted her. Because, right, she's introduced with I Want to Hold Your Hand. We see her struggle. Then, like, she vanishes. They go through the Bono sequence, right? And then Mr. Kite, she comes out, and it's like she's accepted who she is. She's accepted her true feelings, and it's like, but we didn't see that, and I think that bugged me so much this time. It's like you introduce to a great character, her conflict, and then you just show us that the resolution. How did we get to that? But
it was off screen.
It was off screen.
Yeah.
Do you have feelings on this, Ariel?
I think that her character is mainly like kind of depicted off screen, because you don't see like her, you know, getting to New York. She just like literally like, like it's very much her character arc is like kind of like played with her actions and what people say is like, oh, like, where did she come from? Oh, she like came through the window kind of thing. And it is very much who Prudence is. I mean, like, of a character, and like it's like she kind of like represents kind of like a subtlety to her character arc, because she essentially does run away to the circus, you know, upstate. You know, because it's like upstate New York is where they find her, and at Mr. Kite's like circus, and like you kind of get that she gets over Sadie, because she's like, oh, okay, I met, you know, somebody, and she's a contortionist, and that's. But I think that kind of like fits in with her character, because like she she left Ohio to get over, the cheerleader, and then she's like a helpless romantic because in a way, she like, but she finally
Okay.
found like a romance that's reciprocated in a way because
Oh,
like
interesting.
so yeah.
That's
And
true.
so like her struggle was complete, even though like we could have seen more. Because like I've like to me, I felt like what it was is that part of it was like, I mean, the writers are from this time, like they are from this time period, right? So like they're writing to that. I think I think that it's actually pretty bold that they included Prudence's character arc, even up to the point that they did. And so I think that like you have to like, there's a little bit of that. Also, I think 2007, if I remember correctly, also was a little bit of a tie spot with gay marriage and
That's a good point.
Like, just like more, I feel like it's been over just, I'll say like 7, maybe 10 years, maybe a little bit less than that like that's become more of like a open sort of thing that's in movies. Like we see that more and more, like more now. People, whether whatever your opinion is, I'm not gonna, but to me, I just think it was bold. I thought I do feel very much like you. I feel conflicted with Prudence because I do find that there's something about it. Like even whether you're gay or not, there's that you might feel that like a hopeless romantic, where you're quick to fall in love, yet may not be reciprocated with the individual.
But you know why it's done so good?
Give it to me.
Because they choose to introduce her with the song of "I Want to Hold Your Hand."
Okay.
"I Want to Hold Your Hand" is such a happy, upbeat, like exciting song.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's with the tone and the moodiness of it, it changes to a sad song. To like you said, a hopeless romantic. And I love how the screenwriters did that with this song. That they said, we're going to take this beautiful song about being in love and having the girl and holding her hand, but in this case, no, we're not changing the lyrics. We're changing how we approach the music and the tone and the key, right? To make it more somber, to make it more of a conflicted, emotional feeling that she's having.
This is a perfect example why I think this movie is a beautiful. It's a masterclass in helping to leveraging music from an artist, but using it as the painting for a palette.
Yeah, exactly.
To craft a painting, because I think they do that with so many songs in this one, right? I mean, obviously, I feel like through the psychedelic one, it's they're pretty. They didn't do too much, but I feel like the beginning and the end, first act, second act, they just add so much to that I think Revolution is also another one that I think about.
Yeah. Because rewatching it now with Revolution in particular, like he's not like, because the way that everybody around him is acting, he's not actually saying those words. Like he is like it's just how he's feeling inside, but you could see that, oh no, he's like saying something else that because they're like kind of reacting differently to how the song is going. So there's kind of like, but you get the point across. Like he's not really saying like singing this song or these lyrics. He's just saying like he's fed up with this, of like how you like want to be, you're revolutionary, like you're gonna like, it's you're gonna get in trouble and stuff like that, and he like is warning Lucy of like what essentially, because he could kind of see through Paco, which of course, like what the heck with the name Paco, of course.
Paco. Such a punk. Here's not only that, but we recently watched Poker Face.
Oh, okay.
No, we watched Poker Face, which has a whole sequence with these other activists, similar time frame, and these old women who like they were telling their story, and it is like all flowery and colorful, but Charlie, who's the main character, finds out later is that she's that completely they were extremists in what I love about this is the juxtaposition again.
Yeah.
His words yet are saying one thing, is supporting what they're going for. The action of the film and the things that are happening, events in that scenario, are the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I love it. I think you're completely jarred. You're completely like the entire time through that sequence. I mean, part of it is just that like he loves Lucy and he's trying to help her. It's not even about getting back together. It's not even about like scoring. It's about the fact that like he doesn't want her to wind up in a place and I think part of this comes from where he comes from, his background.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming from Liverpool. Like, I love the fact that we have this color shift from even when he gets deported after the sequence. Yeah. We're back to this like monochromatic, like freaking lint, like pocket lint style.
Yeah. Stupid women saying like, "Well, is this real enough?" I hated his ex-girlfriend. I hated her even more with this watch. I was like, "Shut up!" Like, like even at the beginning of her, like just already like like she's like, I'm gonna go like with somebody else, and like you're just gonna leave me and stuff. And it's like, yeah, he did like end up falling in love with falling in love with somebody else and stuff like that. But still, it's like I wouldn't feel bad if him dumping you. Like he like, and where she ended up like essentially like not, I don't know if we would call it trapping. We don't know their relationship, but yeah, right. He like ends up pregnant with like the guy that's like begging at the beginning was begging for his paycheck to go to the pub, is now automatically hands his paycheck to her, and it's like, right.
So even Jude tells her like, just don't date whatever the guy's name is, and end up being him, right? Mm-hmm. I was looking at the cast, and her character official's name is Liverpool Girlfriend. Like, they don't even have like a name for her, or Jude's girlfriend or anything like that. Just Liverpool Girlfriend.
Yeah. I think they have names because they like title like Jude's father the same way, and I'm like, he has a name, but
but it's one of those things that I don't know. Yeah. But it's such that freaking scene is so good. It just showcases. I don't know, this movie. You got something?
I like what you mentioned, Ariel, about like how you're writing. You have this idea of like a script, right, for a jukebox musical. I was watching an interview from one of the producers, and he was saying like, when the idea came up to them, a lot of people he heard a lot of pitches, and a lot of pitches were, how can we tie these lyrics into a story, right? And like we have this catalog of 30-something songs. How can we tie these lyrics and create a story? And he said, it wasn't until I heard from Julie's pitch that she approached and said, I have a story I want to tell. Mm-hmm. What songs can I incorporate into this story?
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's what makes this not only such a great story, but a great musical.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that you have the backbone, and it's this story about love, about friendship, social change, right? Even self-discovery. And then you find the lyrics, the songs that can fit to get these messages and these themes across. And I think that's such a great writing skill for a musical, because I would be that guy who was like, oh, I'm going to do it. I don't know, David Bowie. I'm going to take out these 10 songs and be like, yeah, I'm going to write a story around these 10 songs. I would be that guy, but
I think I would also be that guy, but I have done a musical.
Oh, okay.
Have I told you? I need to show this movie. We actually got to watch the music of so in college, we entered a 48-hour film festival. So the premise of the 48-hour film festival, if you don't know, is you get a crew, you sign up, you show up, they say your team, you go up, they give you a name, so like female, male, a line that you have to use, some sort of prop, and then you have to pick out you pull through a hat for a genre, and usually it comes in like two different genres. And the first time we did it, I had a buddy of mine who loves music, and he wrote songs. He was like, we got to get musical. We got to get musical. my professor at the time, who's now a really good friend of mine, he'd been doing it for several years, and they had wanted musical, and they never got it.
Okay.
We show up, we pulled musical, baby. And so we spent, my buddy spent the night. I was executive producing / was the editor, and so my buddy and some of the crewmates, he wrote 3 songs in one night. We then recorded it, like wrote and recorded the 3 songs.
Wow.
We then went out and shot the whole thing. But that's I think the reason I'm bringing this up is because like we wrote 3 songs, and we basically had to, like, because we were doing it in such a time frame, we had to like figure out, okay, what are the ideas that are happening in the writing room that we could then feed into to, like, some of the stuff to help kind of transition. But I think even if I came to it, I think it would 100% be the same way. I'm like, well, what can we do to fit that stuff in?
Yeah.
But it is truly storyteller magic mastery to say, I have a story, and where can I weave in the songs that will help amplify that story?
That story, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it's not just between Jude and Lucy, We've got Prudence, we've got Max, we have the, like, entirety of, like, the time period, which I would maybe argue to say that, like, that might be the main character that is not really the main character.
The
Time
the
periods?
1960s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. I mean, like yeah, just like going back to like what I was saying, like it's as the movie is just as like informative of the time and place as the Beatles themselves were, kind of thing of this kind of transition of time and social thought and things like that. And it's just so brilliantly, and like it flows so well that you don't even really notice it and stuff like that. And like it's just so organic, as life is, of a transition to these different like social, time, of the 1960s, the social time.
Let's talk. Can we talk about some of the musical numbers?
Let's do it.
Can we go through that?
Yeah.
Ariel, what's the musical number that you feel like, maybe not your favorite? What's the one that you like? Maybe this time watching it that might have stood out to you that you felt like.
I think like,
or just your favorite. I don't know, whatever you want to.
Yeah, I'll start with like one that popped, that like came in and like I was like, oh my gosh, like it's I love this like scene and part, but it's not and then followed up with my favorite. I think like, yeah, Hey Jude kind of like hit kind of hard today for me. It was just kind of like such a great moment. Blackbird always, yeah. What was that?
I was just gonna say, I feel like this Hey Jude always hits
Oh yeah,
so hard. I think I love Hey Jude because of this movie.
Really?
Yeah, like I think I liked Hey Jude, but I distinctly remember feeling very connected to the feeling that these two individuals were having.
Yeah.
Or that, like,
because
yeah,
because you could like kind of feel like this is like a letter being like, Max sent him a letter. I don't know if how readily like phone calls were at the time, but I feel like I've always felt like this is like a letter that like he sent that like informed him like, hey, like Lucy's fine and stuff like that. Like, I miss you, we miss you. Like, can like kind of like it'll be okay and stuff like that. You could get her back and like
don't let her go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of it is like the time period for me, like high school, finding someone that I felt like I was going to marry, honestly, and going through a struggle. So anyways, I just like, I don't know, even now, just thinking about just the impact. It's just a strong moment.
It is. And I think it also just like goes back to the power of Hey Jude in itself, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking of the movie yesterday.
Yeah. Which
the Danny Boyle, right?
yeah, which is also I loved Yesterday. I know a lot of people don't like it.
So do I.
Yeah,
I
it's
actually
that one's
suggested it
considered
for. I
definitely
suggested it
underrated.
for Undercast.
Oh
Yeah, for
yeah.
Underrated
Oh
tonight.
yeah,
And
no, and I was totally backing it up, but one of the powers that be, I don't know, he didn't want to do it. So yeah, so that's why. But
I actually ended up watching it because I was like, oh, of course they're gonna like Yesterday. It's a great one.
Yeah, why?
We'll do it.
It's a great follow up.
it's such
Yeah,
an iconic. It's such a great idea of a story. Like
It is.
yeah,
I've had that thought. One day we'll bring you back again for
oh yeah,
Yesterday.
of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, follow it up.
1 year from today.
Okay,
but
great.
but when I was watching Hey Jude this time here on Across the Universe, I immediately thought of Hey Jude from Yesterday, and it's when I forget the main character's name, but he's out of the hospital. Everyone has forgotten about the Beatles, and he pulls out the guitar that's gifted to him, and he starts playing. No. It's with his parents, right?
Yeah.
And that's right. He's on the piano and he's trying to get this song, and it's the impact, and to the point where he keeps getting interrupted, and he finally turns around and is like, I am playing Hey Jude for the first time. You are the first human beings to ever hear this. Like, let me finish it. And which is so true. Like, it's such a powerful song in this case to write that letter to a friend, right? And say, dude, you gotta come back. Like, we're doing fine, but come back. Like, you win her back again, right? And in Yesterday to be like, don't interrupt me. Like, let me play this. And I just love the use of Hey Jude in both of these movies. No, good choice. I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. What's another one?
Well, my all-time favorite, and remains my all-time favorite, is I've Just Seen a Face, because I just like it's such a beautiful song, and the way that it's played out, and you like Jim Sturgis it was in that moment. It was like that was the record scratch for me when I first watched this. The record scratch. It was in that moment that Ariel, fell in love with Jim Sturgis because and Jude, because he does this when he says, she's just the girl, and she's just the girl from me, and I want the world to see we've met. He does this face that I hope my future my future husband looks at me that way, because it's just with so much love and passion. And then of course it calls back to the line in with a little help from my friends that he picks up of would you believe in love at first sight? And he's like, yeah, I'm certain that happens all the time, and it actually does happen to him. And it's just such an awesome callback to that line in that song, and the bowling alley and is such an awesome set and stuff. Yeah.
That whole sequence. Honestly, it was that the hopping scene, and that sequence, some of those little small sequences that was in the trailer that made me say, I want to watch that movie.
Yeah, the use of the colors, right? Yeah. As it goes back and forth, and the hopping, and just the choreography of being in a bowling alley. That number is so fun. I love that.
Oh, it's so fun. It's freaking beautiful. I know it's he's phenomenal in that scene. I also love it's the hope, the optimism. Max, he's like, who cares? Let's do the thing that any dropout should do. Go to freaking New York. I don't know, it's something. And not only that, but the Village, right? And it's it's a wonderful. It's just I don't know. I think the other thing is that I think I love about that number is that anyone can relate to that. It's come on, camera. You could be in a bowling alley, or the dating, or a group date at a bowling alley is so
iconic. Yeah.
Iconic. It's okay, well, what are we gonna do? You might first day, second day might be a movie. First day might be a bowling alley.
Yeah.
In fact, my first date with my now wife, we did go to the bowling alley. It was just dating. I didn't plan it, but then we had friends that were coming. They're like, "Hey, we want to go. Like, let's go. Okay, let's meet up." Why is my freaking camera not? Anyways, so yeah, so it was great. So awesome. I don't know what else I have to say.
Can I choose mine?
No, absolutely not. No, just kidding. Go.
I think my favorite one. Look, I already talked about I Want to Hold Your Hand, and I think it hits so good. It hits so hard. It going back to that juxtaposition, like it's such a happy song, but in this case, it's so much emotion and pain as well, right? So I love that one, but I Want You. She's so heavy.
Yes, which I used on that project. Just FYI,
Oh, okay.
and I used a screenshot of that reaching out because to like, capture the feeling of the the U.S. Army wanting like
of Uncle Sam.
Yeah,
Uncle Sam. I was actually gonna say that was the one that I like for me.
Yeah,
is like because rewatching it, that number was like for what I remember watching and thinking like this is like crazy, but this time watching it, I was like, not only is it good, no, it's great.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
But the way they decided to do it. Do you have any? Do you have some notes? Because I feel like you do. Give me the breakdown on this one because I feel to me I was watching this. I'm like, one, they have I don't know how many people, but they're in this like army man suit, weird plastic head thing. I was like looking at the budget. I'm like, how did they get away with the budget for this movie being so low?
Okay. Here's a question: how much do you think that number cost?
I think they just like got people who were passionate about this project. That's how the kind of documentary kind of felt. Like all these people just wanted to do this movie. Like Selma Hayek, like she just wanted to do this movie, and I don't think they paid her like that much. Like she just wanted to do this movie. It was just like it was very much
the Beatles and Michael Jackson for some.
yeah.
Wait. You know the number?
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. I would say so I think the total budget for the film was 24 million, something like that. Okay. I want to say it was $1 million.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, it was exactly 1 million. I was watching an interview with the producer in the same interview, and just that number, just that one sequence cost them $1 million.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I'm like
they build the entire stage, right? They're being pulled under right when they lay down, the choreography, the makeup, getting those like
the sequence,
generic G.I. Joe chins.
At the end, the whole like miniature, they built like a whole miniature battlefield too. That they could like, and that statue that I think it was styrofoam though, but the statue that was here. Yeah.
No, they still have to like it's a set designer model it,
sculpt it.
Yeah. To like not only that but like the time it took to film that sequence because I mean like there are like there's the giant choreography. There's also the like sequence of having to make sure, okay, where are we gonna find the warehouse? So warehouse costs, like the crew for the day of the cost. But and then the special effects, right? For I Want You,
the animation of the Uncle Sam coming out, right?
Holds up so well. I was like, yo, where you at, freaking whoever created this studio? Because I'm like, yo, this is so good.
Yeah, for
a 2007 film.
2007 film, it looks really good. Better than a lot of things that are being put out today. No, I love it, and I Want You is like one of my favorite songs?
Okay.
Just because like I love the guitar in it. I love just like the rhythm it has, and it really only has like 4 lines, but it's like an 8-minute long song.
Would not hold up today.
It wouldn't hold up today, but with a great guitar. And I think I remember the first time I saw it, this was, again, and we all did high school, and Vietnam was always like a subject that like was overbrushed. Like,
it was like a line. And then
that having that history teacher that I had, no, it wasn't, because he's like, I will tell you the shit that happened. He's like, yeah,
That's awesome. I wish I had that.
Me
Right?
too.
he was
Because I would ask,
awesome.
I'm like, so, like, why is there only like 2 paragraphs about Vietnam in this entire?
Oh no, he would be like,
right?
yeah, they try to like hide
No, they
us,
do.
that
Well,
kind of thing, yeah.
The military industrial complex completely wants to bury that whole time period.
Yeah.
Like they want to bury what happened to why they were there. They want to bury the amount of literal trauma that is still being processed till today. I had at least 3 to 4 people in my life that I later realized that they were drafted to this war, and that shaped a lot of like who they are. But they would never talk about it.
Yeah.
Like I don't think, even if I asked them like to have a discussion, I think they would just like they would just like, no. You would, when you like interacted, you wouldn't think that they ever like went through anything traumatic, anything like that. But that like it's something they had to bury into a put into some sort of like chest thing, dig it 6 foot into their metaphorical mind, bury that thing, and then build a house over it so they would never have to go and build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had the great opportunity with my collegiate kind of like, or my my academic history in a way, aside from that history teacher, but also in my undergrad of like public health and stuff, and then also in my grad school things of kind of similar situations of studying like public health war and things like that, and as well as like just public health no dues, like don't do this, or like or warnings. And one of the biggest is Vietnam related of Monsanto and Agent Orange, well the Agent Rainbows essentially, and yeah, like, so I of course I'm not an expert on the Vietnam, but I have had a lot of exposure to Vietnam War, and then of course like across the universe, I was like like having that in my life, I was just like, oh yeah, I would love to learn more about this and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like it's known as like the only war that we ever lost kind of thing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Korean War is the most forgotten war, but yeah, Vietnam is the one that we lost kind of thing.
Marsh, I wanted to ask you then, how did this movie shape this song for you then?
I loved it just because I knew of the draft, right?
Right.
And I think like seeing this was me 2007. I had just turned like 18, right? So I was about to leave high school, enter college, enter into my like early adult life, and I remember just being like, man, that would have sucked. Like I would have been drafted.
Understatement of the freaking forever.
And I think what seals it for me is just that last sequence in that number where they're carrying, Lady Liberty, and the lyrics of "She's so heavy."
Yeah.
Right. And I had always heard that song. I'd always loved this song from the Beatles. The song is dedicated to Yoko Ono, and she's so heavy means like how awesome and like such a 60s 70s slang of like so cool and like such a unique person, right? And which is Back to the Future, a running joke of the phrase "it's heavy," right?
Yeah.
But when it's used here of like liberty and the price of freedom, it's such a heavy toll, and it was such a heavy price to pay for these soldiers. And were we even fighting for liberty? Right? And I think that's when it hit me. I'm like, freaking Vietnam. And like it just like I think it was just that, again, going back to this juxtaposition of like this song about the love that an individual has for someone else, and then now of this song of like the government out to hunt you and get you, and now you have to pay your life, this heavy toll for us to justify being in this war, right?
Yeah.
And I just love I love just the imagery of them carrying Lady Liberty on their backs and just yelling, "She's so heavy."
Yeah. And then also to follow it up with another like kind of like juxtaposition of the whole dialogue that Max has with like, you know, his two friends of like, I ate all those cotton balls and stuff like that, and then like, but then there's like a gravity to like, that's what's awesome about this movie as well, is like it holds like gravity, but then also like levity in the same breath in a way in certain moments, and that's one of them, because they're having a very like kind of like rough conversation of like, he's like, I'm going to war, and like and then one of the friends like, learn French or die, like they're like seeing it as like a death sentence and stuff like that, especially like Lucy, who has seen, you know, somebody die because of this war, and like and yeah, it's just kind of like it's that gravity but then levity at the same time, and that this movie kind of like encompasses as well too.
I don't think that you summed up this movie beautifully. It's a deep with levity, and I think that's part of really what this movie does. I'm so grateful you picked this movie for the movie that shaped you, and I love doing these interviews with guests, because I get to see these movies in just a different light. Like, why is it that you why is this movie picked, right? And then being not only like having new and fresh eyes on something that like maybe slipped by for for several years, and being reminded that good movies never die. They just grow, right? And I think particularly this movie will become more and more a movie that will be touted as a film that can help open up the conversation of this time period, of the things that happened, the feelings that were felt, the juxtaposition between actual people. Like there were people like Jude's character, the fact that like Lucy is intermingling with his character who is charismatic and attractive, but also like passionate about something that she's also passionate about, but in a way that that is trying to do good things that are bad. Right. And having the fact that like we all go on our journeys. We like our life is not something that can be said that you have one story and that's it.
And I think that's sealed for me. I think that the character of Jude for me really does that, right? He, as a foreigner, like he's just kind of like, okay, Vietnam, whatever. Oh, okay, like all of these things happening in U.S. in the 60s were so foreign to him, right? And he almost seems like a character that's just kind of passing by through all of this, right?
Which is one of his famous like pictures as well, is that like of his, it's like just passing through is like one of the murals that he has, and it's actually of Lucy and him trying to hold on to Lucy, but it could be transferred to him as well.
And I think he's such a unique character. I like that we're not seeing this from the view of Max, of being drafted or leaving a girl behind, right? I love the idea. I love that it was scripted out by a foreigner coming here, and you have the backdrop of the 60s, of counterculture, of Vietnam, of the civil rights movement, and he is just witnessing all this. What is his role in all of this? And at the end, it's summed up with I just forgot. Love, right?
What's it?
All you need is love.
All you need is love.
Thank you. Which I freaking so cry every single time I get to this part.
You would cry even more about because in that documentary they show like the rehearsal. They rehearse like essentially the whole movie, and in the rehearsals they were supposed to end up on like kissing and end up on the same roof and stuff. And it makes me like, it's nice that they get to see each other, and that face that he gives, like when he finally sees her, it's just like, oh my gosh, like at that point you're bawling and stuff like that. But then there's also that part of you that's just like, I just want to like embrace and kiss. So if you get that feeling, go and watch the making of, because they get that moment and you're like, okay, I feel good.
Good to know.
It was intended to have that separation then, right? In the movie?
In
or
the
was
movie,
it like,
yeah, they made that choice. Yeah.
Okay.
But like in
Okay.
the rehearsals, in the early stages of the movie, you know, like I was saying, like they very much like once they started filming, like did things on the fly, made changes, like the Selma Hayek thing of like, okay, yeah, let's like multiply you and stuff like that. But yeah, like they that was the choice that they made, like in the final scene.
It's so good. It's so good.
So good.
It's a great movie. I want to talk one last thing before we
Yeah,
wrap
no.
it up. Julie Taymor actually just did literally like 6 weeks ago an interview for The Hollywood Reporter. It's like, if you have time, it's like a 2-hour long interview. But she's asked about whether this will ever be on stage.
Oh,
Question: would you guys like to see this, an adaptation of this, taken to the stage?
no.
Yeah, maybe if it's done really, really.
Hold on, Ariel, you
I
gotta
know.
like just soak
I
this
know.
guy in. This is what a person looks like when their brain is completely shattered.
That was just a quick no. Just like, no, I don't want to. Okay, but I want to hear go.
It would have to be innovative. It would as much innovation as the movie itself was. I don't like. They don't have to carbon copy, you know, the elements. They can't. You know, they can't.
Right.
But to have as much innovation as this movie did, then I would like to see it. I would like to possibly, I don't know. Maybe there's still people in the U.S. that like could capture this. And if Julie Taymor is like on board and like directing it, and you know, just like full on, like this is my baby as well. Like I'm transferring it. Then yeah, I would have a lot more. It would have a lot more potential. It's a hard. I don't know, because I'm just hoping, because if it comes out, I would want it to be successful. Like, like it might be but then there's like right now, I don't know if are caught up on like Broadway, kind of like sphere of Broadway, but there are a lot of jukebox musicals coming out, so I don't know if it's like the right time, because there's so much of a saturation in the market right now.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yep.
But yeah.
Look,
Makes sense.
I just don't think this movie. This is a artist who knows theater and came to the medium and took what she knows and brought it to the medium that is a film. And I don't even if you adapt it, you could get an adaptation that would be good, that would be enjoyable.
Yeah.
I just think that it wouldn't cause the same impact that this movie does. And it would almost I'm being a little bold saying this, but I think that if they did do that, it would almost lessen the impact for this film.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just like, as someone who who's done filmmaking and whatever, and seeing this movie, rewatching it, the fact that this movie is what it is playing not only what film started out as theater acts as a moving picture, but then taking what digital and what editing brought to film and putting it all together into this wonderful medley of cinematography, of filmmaking, of storytelling, of musicals, of theater, of what can some of the best in people might say like, well, this is not quite the same, but I just think there's no other film that I can think of that has any sort of sense of, I mean, you get musicals, they're great, but they're a fun time, but nothing like what you come out feeling from this movie.
Yeah. You know what I would back? I would back it 100%. I would back them doing a reunion concert, and like doing like just them, like
Now you're thinking.
Yeah, like they did, like that Spring Awakening concert. That I would like fly wherever. I was on. I could not go to the Spring Awakening one, but I would fly to that one, like in heartbeat, because I love, like, yeah, this is my favorite, like, favorite movie.
That I would say.
I would back that, because but with the original cast, like Jim Sturgis, everybody,
Could you? What if they did that sort of reunion thing, music concert, but they had a backdrop, like they did some sort of like projection style, like movie sequence stuff. Why is my freaking camera struggling? It's like it's tired.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, like at the Hollywood Bowl, you could definitely set something up like that with the backdrop and stuff. Like,
look at you! All right, producers, Ariel Ortiz is open for negotiation. Producing rights.
Yeah, I can produce it. Like, just get me all the connections and I'll plan everything out.
No, yeah. Marcel, you're a yes.
I'm
sorry if I scared you.
No. I was a no, because I'm like, how do you capture this lightning in a bottle twice, but put it on stage, right? What you guys have said. But Julie in this interview totally sold me on it.
Okay, what did she say?
So she has a draft already completed that she's held on to for years. She's been and she's very open about it in this interview. We'll link it in our show notes, but she talks about how, like, it's just been hard, like, getting licensing rights to the songs.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
To put them on stage, right?
So speaking of licensing rights, at the time of this movie coming out, was it still under the Jackson property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't until
after.
Yeah, something.
I think
it was after. Yeah. It wasn't until,
because you can get
like
anything
5 years, or I think maybe 5 years after his Michael Jackson's death. Then Paul McCartney, like, essentially had a bet, and he won for the rights.
Yeah. But yeah, so she's saying that she's been trying for the longest time to just figure out licensing on the music.
If Paul McCartney didn't have a second wife, then if his first wife was still alive, then he would. I'm sorry, no, that's okay.
Calm down.
But she has pitched it like this. She has said that she said it wouldn't be a traditional Broadway stage musical where you have the stage and the set pieces coming in and out, right? She says, and which I thought was very unique. She said that this movie has 200 scenes, not shots, 200 scenes in it.
Yeah.
And she's like, imagine translating that on stage. She's like, it would be impossible. So what she has pitched is she saw this stage in Europe somewhere where the seating is in the middle.
Yeah.
And the way that she describes it is almost like being in the volume, right? Like in the volume.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have screens, projections all around you, and with the scene changes, those projections change. So you as an audience are in an immersive stage. And
American Sing status, like of the round movie, or do you just?
Oh yeah. And so, like, everything would shift, and you would, you don't have the performers coming in and out of the stage. Rather, it's all happening around you and interactive with you. She's like, because of the way she designed the movie, she's like, I just couldn't do this in a traditional stage.
I mean, that's okay.
So she has it. She believes that technology is there. She can do it.
But it would be expensive. It would be more expensive than the movie. That's for sure.
Yeah.
100%. You want more expensive than me. I mean, okay. I mean, I'm sold.
But it would be really cool to see it in that kind of a setting where the scenes are changing around you, right? And it's more interactive, and then than just a regular stage.
Yeah, truthfully, a staging presentation that I think kind of like it is on a stage. It's not on a round, but the seamlessness of the movements of scenes was so, and it had like a screen in the background that was really awesome. Is the staged version of Spirited Away. I just recently watched that in theaters, like as part of the Miyazaki, like Phantom event kind of series.
Phantom events.
Yeah. That had a really awesome seamless like and you I mean, if you don't know Spirit Away, like just visually like beautiful moments and stuff like that, and they capture it very well. I very well enjoyed that, so I would like probably look into that kind of staging as well, in from that like Japanese company as well too.
So she's ready. Bless her. She's ready to do it. She's just waiting for the licensing rights.
I feel like if I would want it to be like a limited, like you had to be there,
limited run.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I just am like, I mean, the freaking tickets would be free and insane.
Or like recorded at least, I really feel like recording these kind of things, even if you have to pay for it, like it makes it so accessible. And I really hope that other like shows do that, because
like Hamilton or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Ariel, thank you so much for hopping on for the pod. It was a wonderful conversation.
Oh no, definitely.
Thank you to all those of you who are listening or watching us on YouTube. If you like this episode, we would love it if you could give us a rating, whatever that may be, and let us know in the comments what is your favorite song or song sequence for this movie in the comments, or when you do leave the review.
You can also get in touch with us via email, you're at Real Chumps, or connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, obviously YouTube, and on Threads. You can also follow me and Danny on Twitter. I'm on Twitter as Marstrosity, MERCTROSITY.
And I'm Rubio_TV or Rubio.tv on other platforms. Ariel?
Ariel, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me on the Undercast Company socials and our podcasts. Like I said, I have a monthly podcast called You've Never Seen ? That you can always find me on, and please go back and listen to those all those episodes if you like the kind of like deep kind of like things that we got into, and I in this episode, randomly we get into some very deep like ideas and feelings within ourselves in that podcast. So yeah, even if it is just a random like 80s movie, we get deep for some reason. It just leads down that road.
Movies are deep.
Yeah,
movies are meant to be deep. Yeah,
movies are meant to be talked about, to have discussed, to be rewatched, to be newly watched. That's what it is. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Ariel, again, thank you so much for joining us. Go check out Ariel, the Undercast team, and everything that they're doing. They've got some great content, great stuff.
Yeah, we're going to be revamping and changes are on the way, and I'm excited for them, and hopefully adding some more to our repertoire, as I say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Join us next week as we will be doing a breakdown, a discussion about those summer blockbuster movies and kind of the state of movies for where we're at and the theater experience. So stay tuned for that. See you next week.
We'll see you.
Bye. Thanks for being amazing.